It was 9 months that it took your confidence to be completely shattered.
No. My confidence being shattered took about 4 months. That one, there was no delay. Chaos started in the country. Chaos just started. And then it snowballed into like war. Like it was really bad. For some reason, she just showed up in the room where we were. She wasn't living with us. And then she was like, "That's why I told you to have a plan." She was in immigration and in a full uniform. This is the first time I'm sharing this openly. At the time, I felt ashamed. I'll now tell you. Like 2 months before my wedding date, everything fixed. The company I was working for suddenly stopped paying salary. They had financial issues. Whatever fault lines previously existed in your marriage, when you migrate, is going to get amplified. Immigration has that effect. Like they say in Hausa, dole, compulsory, it will happen. Everybody has a plan until they are punched in the face. No regret whatsoever. No regret whatsoever. It is worth it. It will be rough. For a few people, it will be straightforward. The prayer for everybody is,
You're welcome to the show. First of all, before we get into it, please, if you're not subscribed, please remember to subscribe to the channel. And then if you're subscribed, please share this video with somebody else. Okay, my guest today moved from Nigeria to Canada over a decade ago, seeking, as you might imagine, better opportunities for himself and his family. And by his own admission, by his own testimony, that move shattered his confidence, just completely just destroyed his confidence for quite a bit. It's quite an interesting and compelling story. On this one, I speak to Dapo Bankole. This is the Teju Babyface podcast. All right, Dapo, you're welcome. So, if I had to introduce you formally, I would say something along the lines of my guest today left Nigeria for Canada over 12 years ago, looking for, as you might imagine, better life, better opportunities, and all of that. And in his own words, by his own admission, the experience of settling into Canada shattered his confidence and completely destroyed him. By his own admission. Will that be a good characterization, that the experience, completely shattered your confidence?
Totally. Like, it's just the reality. I wish I would, I could say something different, but it's the reality. It's completely messed up my confidence. I was very confident. Seriously, I was very confident. Even people here ahead of me, they were even very confident, more confident even for me, because it wasn't a knee-jerk reaction that I was traveling. It wasn't a fad at the time. It wasn't really a thing. I planned for it. Like, I planned for it way ahead of time. But there's something it does to you, especially if things don't pan out the way you really plan or expected. It just messes up with you completely. The way you think of yourself. Because I started to doubt my skills. That's the problem. I started to feel like, do I really? Maybe I never. Like, I started to think, maybe I never even had the skill sets that I thought I had. Right. So that was the problem, and it's not a good place to be. I'm telling you.
So the question right now is, have you regained your confidence now? Or
Oh
are you
yeah.
still in the process?
Oh yeah, no, definitely. That's a thing of the past for sure, and it was a more of a temporary thing, as far as I'm concerned. It was a passing phase. Now, do people recover from that? Not all the time. I work a lot with immigrants. I have a lot of contact, and people don't always recover. That's the downside, right? So, but personally, oh yes, I have. And even when I did, I mean, primarily for me, what caused, listen, let's look at this. What really caused the problem? What caused the real issue at the point? It's because I had a plan, I worked out at it, and everything panned out as I wanted until I got here, right? So, but then everything afterwards was not panning out, even though all other things, came to be. So, but the key thing was I felt personally as a man, I was married, I felt I was failing my family. I felt that the vision I painted was really not what was being actualized. That was not their experience. I knew where we were before we left. So for me, that was really so. It's like and as a man, I mean, as Okunrin coming from Nigeria, you see yourself as the provider for the family. You see yourself as daddy said this or my husband said this, and we all believe in it, and then suddenly that thing is not coming to pass. It's like my sense of responsibility it was so it was threatened. That is so it was I think maybe for another person they wouldn't mind, but for me, maybe if I was alone, fine, that's a different case. But I was married and I had two kids at the time. And
Do you, Dapo, do you know, sorry to interrupt you, do you know how many times, over the years I have said the same thing, not only to myself and to others, right? That if I'd come here, I mean, I love my wife, I love my kids, I would have it no other way. But if I had come to America alone as a single guy when I did, people would never have even known that I left Nigeria for a day. I'd have been going and coming out. I found all sorts of ways to, navigate. But when you have a family and responsibility, there's a way it holds you in place so that if you're not careful, you look at your wife and your kids sometimes like, it is you people that are.
no, you're right. So honestly, and I think it's that factor of being a man or being at least wanting to be that responsible person that you've always been or that you want to be. It's that part of you that the external situation hits at directly and says, you know, that kind of a thing. So
Okay.
yeah.
All right. Thank you for watching thus far. And this is not the end. We'll continue after this. I just want to say thank you to the partners of this podcast who bring it to you. What you'd call our sponsors is Lightforth. Lightforth is your online solution for job applications in 2025 and beyond. If you're a person who's in the job market, Lightforth is the solution that not only trains you in the job, whatever the job, Lightforth helps you to prepare your resume to make sure that it is compliant according to the industry standards and also helps you apply for the jobs. In addition, Lightforth also prepares you for the interviews, does the interview alongside you, and gives you all the back end information. So essentially, just think of yourself as having another self, an avatar that can do all the job applications for you and knows every single job, every single vacancy in your field, and can tailor your resume and your application to every single job while knowing every single answer to every single job. I mean, that's just amazing. It is said that it takes an average of 20 minutes to properly apply for just a job. Lightforth does it for you in seconds. For that whole 20 minutes, Lightforth will apply to over 100 jobs for you and beyond. To learn more, the link is in my bio. Just look for the link where it says Lightforth app or Lightforth job application. Thank you, Lightforth. Yeah, so I mean, you said something interesting that, look, I know the life we're living in Nigeria. So from what I could call about you, from what I could, from what I gathered about you, You had a comfortable life in Nigeria.
Yeah.
You had over 10 certifications. You were working, you were moving up in your career, you were upwardly mobile. In short, you were comfortable. What what possessed you to want to leave? Now, ordinarily, I wouldn't have used the word possessed before I came to America, right? But it's just that when you start going through it in America, that's what you will ask yourself. That what even possessed me to even want to leave in the first place? So, what made you want to leave Nigeria since you were comfortable?
So, a very good question. People ask me all the time, and yeah, everybody wants to know why did you leave? Why did you leave? Everything was okay. Why did you leave? Why did you leave? I'll say this: my dream of coming to Canada, at least, it started with myself when I was really very young, at about age 16. I believe, yeah, that was when I did my poly jam, so we'll call it, into the polytechnic. So it was my brother's friend who took me there that morning for that poly exam. So I went, I sat for the exam, everything went well and no issues. But I think it was a few months down the line afterwards that I was just asking, oh, where's Bragbenga? In fact, this person I'm talking about is in Calgary, here with me in Canada. So like, where is Bragbenga? And it was like he's out of the country, like he's relocated to Canada. Like, number one, I didn't even know there was a country called Canada. I had no idea. But when I was told that, oh, Bragbenga was no longer in the country, I'm like, oh, so it's actually possible for people to leave and like leave Nigeria and actually go live somewhere else permanently. How does that work? So that got me curious. But again, I was young. I was just entering the polytechnic then. So I just packed that, but I had it in mind. Like at some point, this was going to happen. So much so, I was so invested in it that even when I was courting my wife, I mentioned to her, I'm like, I do have a dream that I want to live out of the country. Most likely it's going to be Canada, but I have no idea when it's going to be. Do you have a problem with that? And she thought about it. I mean, it wasn't one a single conversation. Eventually, yeah, sure. That she also had that thought before, but nothing like just passing thoughts. So she didn't really think too much about it. So, but she came back and said, yeah, sure. Because for me, it was a clear dream. I wanted to do it, and I'm like, I'm gonna do it. And I didn't want a situation where we then get married, and at the end of the day, it becomes an issue after we've invested so much into the relationship. So since we agreed, I said, sure. So we started planning. In fact, then I got to know about, certain certifications here in Canada for the IT professionals. There is a body called CIPS, Canada Information Processing Society. It's like the Computer Society of Nigeria. So they had the certifications for IT professionals. I went through all those things. I had not even applied for Canadian immigration when I went through those certifications. Because again, I was just planning. I'm like, at a time, we will be ready, but I mean, the opportunity will show up, but I just wanted to be ready. That was just my intention. So I started doing these things. Why did I do that? Because I knew where I was going and I started to practice. Like, again, when the opportunities shows up, I wanted to be ready. So the first time I actually applied for Canadian immigration was 2006, 2007. But a few months after they submitted my application, everything went south. They changed the rules. It's normal. Canada does that all the time. So they changed the rules and deprioritized my application. So again, I forgot about it, moved on with life again, just continued. And then in 2010, I believe, 2010, I was planning to, my wife and I actually, not just me. So she secured admission to a school in the UK. I also secured admission to a school in the UK. I think it was it? I don't remember the name. Maybe it's Wharton Business School. Honestly, I don't even remember. For my MBA, I believe it was Wharton Business School or so in the UK. So secured admission. I thought, let me go there. Let me just go have my MBA in the meantime, and my wife also, so that whenever I'm traveling, she's traveling, so that we'll always just be together. But at some point, I just spoke to. I thought I have I have all sort of friends, but there are people in my circle that I respect their voices. They're my friends, but I just respect them, not because of anything. They have no power over me in that sense. But when they say stuff, I take it serious. I consider it. So I called her up. Her name is Kemi. We became very good friends over time. She left the country, went traveled abroad, went to Sweden, schooled there, worked in the UK, did everything, and then later she moved over to Canada. So I just called her. Hey, Kemi, it's been a long time. We just caught up, and I said, I was just celebrating my own achievement. Like, I got my admission into this school, and I'm going to go there in the UK and everything. She listened to me thoroughly. She was already here anyway and working. After my whole excitement died down, she said, Dapo, you once told me that you plan moving to Canada. I said, yeah, 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 sure. She said, what about that? I said, oh, that's coming whenever it comes, right? And for now, let me go to school. She said, can I give you a piece of advice? I said, sure. She said, if you still plan on coming to Canada, don't waste your money going to any business school. I said, what? She said, I'm telling you, if you plan on coming to Canada, perish that thought. You can do it if you want, but there is no point because Canadians do not generally just appreciate or value certificates from outside the country. I'm like, what? Even the UK? She was like, I'm telling you, I've been here. Don't worry about it. My heart sank. And I thought, okay, maybe it's time for me to apply again. Because the application I submitted 2006, 2007, it was still there, nothing was happening to it. So fortunately, I went ahead, I applied. I applied under 0213 was the NOC code, Computer and Information Systems Manager. So I applied. 2 years later, 2012, we got the visa and we moved within 6 weeks actually. That was it. And at the time, it was grossly unpopular. Where I was working, people were like, sure, we're okay. Like, are you seriously sure you are okay? It just reminded me like when I was getting married and I still had a job, but like 2 months before my wedding date, everything fixed. The company I was working for suddenly stopped paying salary. They had financial issues and everything was set. And I didn't have money. And the same way people ask me, sure, we're okay, cancel this wedding and get another job, then you come back to it. But, said no, of course, with my wife's support, said no. And things turned around afterwards. Like we got married on a Saturday. By Monday, I got a job that I didn't apply for.
Okay, awesome.
I'm telling you, it was a weird thing.
Look,
Sorry?
there's so much in what you've given me already. I mean, so let me even start from where you ended.
Okay.
You planned for this thing.
Totally.
Right? You planned for this thing. By what you just said now, from when you were small, from when you were a child, you had been looking to go in abroad, even when you were writing your jam, when you were a teenager.
Yep.
And then when you started to work as an employee, as a professional person, as a married person, as a father and a family man, this wasn't just something that you suddenly woke up and said, you know what, I'm tired of this country.
No.
In short, this was not, so there's a difference between quitting and, panicking. So you didn't panic. This was something that you planned towards for years. And yet, once you got on ground, things did not work out. So tell me about that. What happened exactly? Why didn't things work out? They say he who plans, who fails to plan, plans to fail. So they've always told us that if you plan, everything will be okay. They say, look before you leap. You did all of that, and yet you ran into huge trouble. So what happened?
I'll say time and chance. But before I get into the details, let me just quickly say this. After I applied, then I had one weird experience. You could call it spiritual, you could call it whatever. Again, this was 2010. We were good. Nigeria was good. I slept and I had a dream. Suddenly in the dream, for some reason everything was normal, everything was good, and then suddenly chaos started in the country. Chaos just started. And then it snowballed into like war, like it was really bad. I don't dream, like I'm not a dreamer, I'm not, but it started with some confusion, misunderstanding, and then chaos started, war. And we looked outside where we were living and in that dream, and I saw people being killed, people, it was just terrible, like seriously terrible. First time I'm sharing this openly. So much so we ran and we hid ourselves in our wardrobes in the house. That was in the dream. And we were scared. We were really, really, really afraid. Like I woke up panicking, but before I woke up, you know, um, we hid ourselves and it took a while. Eventually things started to settle. And then I saw a friend of our firstborn. We used to call her Auntie Folake. She used to work, I'm not sure if she's still there, but she used to work in immigrations, Nigerian immigration services. That's what she was in full uniform in that dream. So as things died down and normalcy started to return, outside, then so for some reason she just showed up in the room where she wasn't living with us, and then she was like, "That's why I told you to have a plan." And then I woke up. Like I'm telling you, I woke up panicking. I was shaking. I was like, it was because the gory things I saw in the dream was too bad. So, but she just showed up and immediately I just knew the meaning of that dream because she was in immigration and in a full uniform. And she was just like, that's why I told you. And it didn't make sense. She didn't live with us, but somehow she showed up in our house in that dream. And then as she said that thing, I woke up. It just, for me, that was a very clear validation that I was doing the right thing. For me, it was clearly
So
prophetic.
was it more for validating your own
I think
actions, as you have said, or was it more for that something was going to happen in the country?
honestly, at the time, that dream didn't make sense either way because we had nothing to suggest that. The only thing was, at the time, what I took from that dream was it was a validation that I was doing the right thing. That's what I took from it. But recently, one of my friends who I shared the dream with at the time, he reminded me of that dream and said, the things you experienced in that dream that caused you a panic attack when you woke up, can you look back now and compare what happened in the country? So
Well,
I really can't say, but I'm just telling you, this is the first time I'm sharing this openly.
well, somebody might watch this and say, well, Nigeria is not at war yet, so your dream did not happen. So what are you talking about? I'm in Lagos, I'm in Ibadan, I'm in Oyo, I'm having fun. So what are you talking about?
Yeah, again, nothing. It didn't affect anything. It was just a case of I had that, and I was just like, I don't know. Like I don't dream. Like I don't. Me when I sleep, I just sleep like a log of wood, Musa. But when those things happen like that, I'm like, something about it. So it was for me at the time. It was just a validation. But I moved on. Back to your question. I think I answered it short and
No.
sweet.
Before you answer my question, though, that I should say that that thing that I just said was I was just joking because which is why I mentioned the locations. So for a person in Lagos, Ibadan, Oyo, and all of that, there's probably not a problem. But if you share this dream with a person in the north and certain other parts of Nigeria, back then, their reality is partly the reality that you have just said. For those who are living in those areas that are really in trouble, where people are dying or where people are being killed, and we are removed away from it. So, as the Yoruba say, the Omoluabis, as my people from Ajawa say, Eni Amori Ibaku is seems to be our attitude. We keep hearing the stories of communities being attacked, people being killed, and all of that, but we don't seem to care. But that's your dream is the reality now of people who are living within the borders of what we call the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So let's be clear about that.
Yeah, I think you're right. Actually, I think you're right. Again, you see, you've given me another perspective that even myself I wasn't exactly looking at. What I got when my friend reminded me recently about this dream was the confusion, the chaos, the uncertainty. The fear, the insecurity, that kind of thing. But I didn't even. But with what you said, you I think you're spot on actually.
Okay. So let's talk about my question: how preparation let you down.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I think it's time and chance. At the time I moved, I know I have a friend of mine. She's Ghanaian. We met when we were planning all these moves. We had this online forum, and all of us, people, we just met like that online, and we used to just talk. But I did meet her once before I came here when I went to pick up our passport and all that. She got a job before I moved. Before she moved, we applied about the same time. Our visas came out about the same time. Ours came out a little, maybe probably a few months after mine in 2012. But my point is, she got a job right from Ghana before she moved. I think she's still on that job with the government, for that matter, with the government of Alberta, the provincial government where I live. She got a job. So for her, no idea. She didn't have the same experience like I had. None, right? I also do have a friend, of course, after I started my professional work, and I was at work one day, and one of the managers who I was working with, I was working with for a project, and he said, oh, they needed this kind of person, that sort of thing. So I'm like, oh, I have a friend who actually fits that role. So I called up my friend. He had a visa, his family was here, but he had not resigned his job in Nigeria. So he was back in Lagos. So I called him. I'm like, ATM, do you resume and see me in the next 30 minutes latest? He was in Lagos. I was working on the role. It took me like 9 months to land that role. So I spoke to him, very quickly sent me the resume. I forwarded his resume to that manager. This guy got interviewed in Nigeria. They called him, had two interviews, and because of that, he ran back. One more interview, he came back, had one more interview, and then he started the role.
Mm,
This was a friend of mine. The experience that I had, he didn't have it. And yet, both of us have similar background. He's an IT person, and all that. Ultimately, I told people before, I said, our paths, even though it's similar, it's oftentimes will be different. You said something before about, planning or no planning. The reality is, what if I didn't even plan? It would have been worse. So the fact, and this has little to do with immigration or integration or whatever, in my own opinion, whatever it is you're doing, you're still better off planning. Even the scripture, I mean, I'm a Christian. The scripture says we should make plans, counting on God to direct us, right? There is another one that says, the horse is prepared against the day of battle. But what? Safety, victory is of the Lord. The key thing is the horse still has to be prepared. Now, the victory, the
mm,
safety, you have no control over that, but you still have to prepare. And I'm not talking about, somebody who lives, a war situation. You even have no time to pick a shirt. You run. I'm not talking about that scenario. I'm talking about intentional relocation, something like this, or anything at all that you have the time to plan for. You still have to plan. So now, whether things work out
mm,
exactly as it should be, or it doesn't work out exactly as it should be, it's not always under your control. The point is, if you didn't plan, it will be worse. Do you understand what I mean? So I wouldn't
mm,
necessarily say
mm,
that
mm.
the fact that I had that poor experience, somebody else should be discouraged that they should not make the move. No, some people have tried to say that, to say that, oh, because Dapo shared his poor experience, it means don't do it. No, no. By all means, go for it. Plan. Do your best. Be very intentional. Don't just be emotional. But if things don't work out, replan. Replan. Like, just do what you need to do. It's my
All
own point, right? You are better off planning than not. That's just a fact, right? So,
right.
yeah, I don't
All
know if
right.
that answers your question, but we can talk
It,
about.
it does. It does. It does. Yeah,
we can talk about
it does. It does absolutely.
why how things can improve. For instance, in Canada, I focus a lot of my energy now in ensuring that immigrants like me, immigrant professionals like me, not students or whatever, and I'm talking of those who have similar background, you were here because of your experience. I try now and focus on helping them to have a better story than I did. So I deal more around, systemic issues that are happening that are serving as barriers, and I'm trying my best to either, throw light on them, have engaged conversations in conversation and things like that. But
All right. Thanks, Dapo. Okay, so tell me your Canadian story. So now let's get to it. So you land. Tell me the story because we have now built the foundation for the story. What exactly happened that shattered your confidence for those years? What exactly went, as we say, what went awry?
the fundamental thing, there's always the short version and there's a long version. The short version, I couldn't provide for my family, and nobody was hiring me. That messed me up. Clear. Okay. The long story, we got here and I started applying. Nobody was just talking to me. Nobody. And we had money, but it's not cheap. I tell people it's not cheap living here. That you earn, for instance, that you earn $10,000 a month, and I'm just making that up as an example. By the time you pay your bills, do this, that money is gone. I mean, depending on your lifestyle, anyway, that is always there. It doesn't matter where you live. But my point was, our funds, we converted naira into dollars. So it's like your money lost value immediately. So, but we had that. But but it was being depleted. There was straight away. My wife went to school. That was the plan. That was what she wanted to do. But for me, I was going to work, Abi. So I was applying for professional level jobs. I'm telling you, crickets. Not a single call, no single rest, nothing. So I'm like, keep going, Shelley, what's going on? So, and this is where it's good to go out, to mix with people, know where people hang out, go and, just go. Don't stay online, especially in this day and age where everything is online. Go out and meet people. So I started going out and I figured out. Somebody mentioned, in fact, a few people afterwards, they're like, Bobo, the question was, did you put your country of origin on your resumes? And I'm like, oh yeah, of course. I mean, why wouldn't you? That's me, right? Why wouldn't you do that? Lagos, wherever. It was like, aha, you're doing it wrong. Remove that country, just leave the company name there and your job responsibility and achievement and everything. Just leave it there, but remove that. I'm like, okay, sure now, no problem. So I removed it. Guess what happened? I started getting calls.
Wait, Dapo. I hold the thought. I don't want to interrupt you. I just need to be sure. Was it that it was a country outside Canada, or was it that it was Nigeria? What was the problem?
The issue was, it was not Canada. It didn't matter whether it was Kuwait or it was anywhere
Okay.
else. It was because it was not
Okay.
like it was just not Canada. It wasn't anywhere in Canada. That was the real issue. Once I stripped that
Okay.
from my
Please continue.
resume, calls started coming in. So I'm like, that
Okay.
was the first and clear validation that, yeah, there's a problem here. So it was obvious that the issue was I didn't have a local experience. So of course, then interviews and all that. So we talk, we do everything. Once they get to the point of this company called Globalcom, where is that? Oh yeah, it's Lagos. Oh, okay. Got you. We keep talking. We'll get back to you. Nada. It didn't happen. Then they won't get back to you. So on and on like that. And after a while, you feel like, you know what? At a point, I started to get a bit desperate. Like, we need to get something. So I threw caution to the winds. I'm like, I'm just going to look for any kind of job because I used to restrict it. So I looked so I got almost immediately. I got a call center job. So I went for it. I never worked in a call center before, but apparently, you know, what I found out from my experience in general was lower level. it looks like jobs with, and I say this with all respect, but um, jobs that are not, should I say, highly skilled or specialized, it was easier to get. So call center, big deal. Just sit down there and So I did that, and it was nothing. I was being paid $10 an hour. It was nothing. Canadian dollars, not even in US. And by the time you factor in your transportation there and back, and I wasn't even given full time hours, and it was even a job that if you disconnect from your system to say you want to go and you want to use the bathroom, or you want to go and drink water or go for lunch, you're not paid for the time that you're disconnected from the system.
Uh,
Yeah, your connection to the system is what you're paid for. So you're connected for 1 hour 10 minutes. That's it. That's what you're paid for, prorated like that. So when I say $10 an hour, it doesn't mean if I work 15 minutes or whatever and then I go for lunch or I go to the bathroom, I'll be no, I'm not paid. Like, you literally have to be seated down, like seated,
mm,
walked. So anyway, so I did that, and then for a few months, and afterwards, I think I was that company was shutting down for the year. That's 2012, and they said we'll resume back in January, no problem. So I was on my way home, and I was a bit confused. I was sad. It was winter, December, my first winter for that matter, and I was wondering, where is my rent coming from now? The company has shut down
mm,
very early in the
mm,
month.
mm.
So I started to, I mean, at the time, of course, we still had some money, but again, my fear is, when everything just keeps going down, down, down. So I had that fear, to be honest. So I was on my way home, very close to our house. We had a car then, Ford Windstar. Um, then my wife called me in the cold, and she was like, "Oh dear, all the sweet words and everything. Can you please help me get this? Ha!" The first thing that came out of me was anger. Ìbínú, ìbínú tó lákọ, no òtútù. Like, you are at home, you had the car. Me, I've gone out. I didn't have a car. I took a bus and train and bus, and at that point I was walking in the cold, and then you called me to bí mi o, mi ò ní tàn. So again, but forgetting the fact that yes, probably the reason she couldn't leave the house, she had the kids with her, right? They can be very exhausting. If she had to go out there, she has to bundle two kids, wrap them up just because she wants to buy one jug of milk, all that effort. But again, you are not thinking about that. It's cold, it's harsh. I was just on my way home. I was wondering, what am I going to do next? Anyway, so she said, I'm just like, okay, fine. So I turned back. I didn't even say I want to get home to pick the car. I just turned back. I walked back to the grocery store. So I got what I wanted to get, what she asked me to get, and I was about leaving, and then it just occurred to me. Somebody else would say a voice told me, a voice into me. It just occurred to me that I could ask them, since since I didn't, I mean, I was at that point, I was open to doing any job at that time. I'm like, sure. So I just thought, maybe these people will have a role. So I just went to the cashier that I just said, sorry to distract you. Do you guys happen to have a role, an open role? She doesn't know, but I could talk to her manager. I'm like, where's the manager? She pointed, I still remember the guy's name. Sean was the manager of that. It's a big chain of a store across Canada. It still exists, in like a massive store chain. So she was like, yeah, go talk to him. So yeah, I looked for the guy. I went to talk to him. I told him the same thing. I'm like, hey, I need a job. Do you have anything open for the night? Like, I prefer working at night. And he said, no, I'm sorry, we don't have anything right now. If you wanted to work during the day, then we might have something for you, blah, blah, blah. I said, okay. So I said, okay, no problem. I'll keep trying. So I just walked away. As I got to the exit, I just wanted to get out of that store, and he just ran after me. Hey, excuse me. Did you say night? I'm like, yeah. He said, oh, that morning they just had a staff meeting and they decided they needed one more person to work at night, but I they've not posted it, and in fact he had forgotten at the point I was asking him. So his mindset was they always need somebody in the day, but it was just that morning that they decided they needed one more person. So he was like, do you have a resume? I said, no, I don't have any resume on me. I just came to buy groceries, blah blah blah. I said, okay, sure. He said, get home. Once you get home, log on to our store, look for anything. It doesn't matter what, that whether it's meat cutter, whatever you find. It was like, I just need to get a hold of your resume. Upload your resume, just apply for anything, it doesn't matter, and come back. That's what he told me. I said, sure. So me that I was annoyed that they sent me on an errand in the cold. Suddenly, love came back like, tán bá rán mi iṣẹ́ tí n bá gbọ́ràn. Opportunity yóò mà ní yọ. So I ran back home, dropped it, quickly did, and I went back to him, and he sat me down in his office and he asked me a couple questions. And the funny thing about that interview, amongst any other thing he asked, he said, do you have experience working in a grocery store like this, blah blah blah? I said, no. Did you have this, did you have that? I said, no. Then the guy looked at me and said, why are you here? It's like, you don't have this experience, you don't have that experience, you don't have. I told him, I said, well, you're right, I don't have all these things you've asked for. But I said, but one thing I can tell you I have. I know how to work at night without sleeping. I said, I have an IT background, and I can confirm to you that when I show up at night, I will not sleep. I will do whatever I'm told to do. And I said, I'm hard. Then I did like this, like, I'm also hardworking. The guy just like said, you are hired. That was it. Just like that. And that's how I got that job. So that became, another job. And I started doing that. It was a really more comfortable, paid more. $13.23 an hour. What was I doing? You come there, all those things on the shelves, whatever. So you were the ones who restocked the entire shelf overnight. So that's what I did. So I continued. I did that for probably like 6, 9 months or something. It was fairly good, to be fair. So it was on that role. Another colleague, then, you see, and this is the thing. People look out for you if you have the right attitude, the right work ethics. If you're friendly, people feel you're approachable and things like that, they will talk to you. One of the people who used to work with me on the same night shift, he approached me. I still remember the guy's name. Tusi is the name. He was from Sri Lanka. He approached me and said, there's another job. I don't know if you mind that. He does that as well in the evenings, and he paid a lot more. Like, it was just for a few hours, but he paid about $40 an hour at the time. So it was like, do you want? I can introduce you if you want. I'm like, oh, sure, sign me up. Why not? I'll take it. So I signed up for that, and that's where that job was, at the Calgary International Airport. I used to, cargo. We used to unload cargo planes and things like, just for a few hours, just every night, like 2, 3 hours, and then we're gone. But you make good bucks, right? So it was really nice. that money was sweet. So the guy just introduced me, took me there, and they took me and they just accepted me. But of course, I had to do. That was the first time I knew there was something called retina scan. You do thumbprint, right? They take your picture. This one you actually had to, your eyeballs scanned it. It was an ID because it was a restricted part of the airport and things like that. So, I did that as well. In fact, one of the days, and I tell you, I need to say this. All that time, as I kept on doing that, even though it was painful, very painful, like, working multiple jobs like that on the same day and during the day as well, I still continue to look for my professional job, because that was the one reason I did not want, that was one reason I did not want to work lower paying jobs during the day, because I felt I would get stuck. I'll have more hours and things like that, but I thought if I do that, I won't have the chance, because the people I was looking for in my professional line, I would readily see them during the day, not at night. So I wanted to leave that space to be able to interact and go look for all those people. So anyway, fortunately, the guy introduced me, and one of those days, I even took my family. I said, come and see what I do. I just wanted to show them my kids and my wife. We drove together to the airport to resume on one shift. They were in the car in the parking lot, but they saw me that I would leave. When a plane arrives, that's when I would go onto the tarmac, and like, I just wanted them to see what I was actually doing. I just, and even when I worked at that grocery place, the same thing. Like, I learned from it a lot actually, and it still influences the way I shop. When you shop and you pick one item here, and then after a while you feel like, I don't like this one, you just drop it at the next place and all that. it got to a point, I was doing that and we're doing that as a family. But after I started working at that place, I knew what it took to actually rearrange and put things in order. So subsequently, I remember one day like that, I went shopping with my wife and kids, and in that same store where I would be coming back to work at night, and we picked something, and after a while, we thought, you know what, we don't need, we just drop. I said, hey, that kini yẹn padà sí ipò kini. So, because má daṣẹ́lẹ̀ fún mi, mo ń padà bọ̀ lálẹ́ yìí.
That was in your store.
In my store.
Okay, so that would be your job when
I come at night, I say,
so every time you go to like a clothes store and you see the carefully and neatly folded shirts, and you just look at it and then you throw it back without folding it, it is somebody's job.
It's somebody's job.
Of course, it's somebody's job.
Yeah, it's somebody's job.
And that person might not be praying for you.
Exactly. Like, who are all these people, right? So till today, that has influenced how I shop, my behavior. It's nothing tangible in that sense, but honestly, it's just made me more empathetic. Is what I'm getting at. And also the other thing is, I knew as well that even though I didn't have an answer, if you had asked me, when are you going to get your professional job? I didn't have an answer. Like, how is it going to pan out? I didn't have an answer. But one thing I was convinced about, this was temporary. I knew that for sure. And that's why I was not ashamed. I was confident. In fact, I even took pictures of my, of those jobs. I have pictures of where I worked at this, where I worked at that. In fact,
but what you have not mentioned, Dapo, is what you have not mentioned that every other person seems to, or that a lot of people seem to want to do first, is to go and drive a taxi or drive a cab. Why didn't that function into your thinking? That always seems to be the lowest hanging fruit, at least from my interviews and the experiences I've had with interacting with people who have to survive in the deep.
Yeah, good question. Number one, it didn't even occur to me. Number two, at the time I was talking about, I didn't have my full driver's license. That's another story. I failed. All these bad habits, the way we drive in Lagos or in Nigeria, I don't know, maybe not everybody, at least me. So
it's everybody. No, it's everybody. No, don't apologize. It's you need to have no, it's everybody. Driving, first of all, I mean, I know things have radically improved now, but for the longest time when we were coming up driving, there weren't even painted lines on the road, talk much less of keeping to your lane. And when there were painted lines, the lines were just decoration. I mean,
exactly.
Just drive anyhow.
How beautiful will the roads be if there are no white lines, right?
If there are no white lines, it's just for beautification. It has nothing to do with staying in a lane or safety. Nothing.
So absolutely. So I failed. I'm telling you, I think I failed my full driving test 2 or 3 times. Yeah, I think 3 times. It was on the 4th attempt that I finally passed. In fact, my wife used to joke that driving test, because I kept failing. So anyway, that didn't occur to me. The one that did occur to me was security job. At the time when I came, I had quite a number of friends that was their low-hanging fruit to work as security. Why? It paid substantially more, and because most of the time, if they put you on night shift, you significantly were not doing anything. Really, you're just sitting down, just waiting for the time to pass. Of course, they go and check and move around, and like literally you're doing nothing. So quite a number of my friends who were struggling at the time, they did that. I didn't want to do that because I had a fear. I'm like, security don't buy a lot of bon, even though I knew I was not in Lagos.
Yoruba man.
Okay, so that's why I didn't think about that.
But how long did this period last for, where you had to do all of these jobs before you now got what you figured was back on the professional path, the career path that you always wanted to be? How long did that period last? Let's say the wilderness.
9 months.
This period.
9 months. Exactly 9 months. And I always tell people it looked as if I was pregnant and then I gave birth. It was exactly 9 months.
It was 9 months that it took your confidence to be completely shattered.
Oh, no. Well, you could... No. My confidence being shattered took about 4 months. That one, there was no delay with that. No.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Really? So it was the process of, so this is, I'm getting the picture now. So it was you coming into Canada, having first of all prepared, having done certifications, having seen your friend from Ghana get a job from, before she even came, and you being the astute person you are at your job. It was that you came with an overwhelming sense of confidence. When you now add the fact that you are a Christian and you are sure that God told you, especially when you had the dream, God is with us on this journey. So, you just landed and then everything was opposite.
Exactly. Like, what could go wrong, right? What could go wrong? So it was completely like, it took 3-4 months for my confidence to go down.
So what changed? What got you back into that professional line? Was it just a question of just consistency and not giving up and just perseverance and all of that? Was it just persistence? What changed? What did you do differently?
That's foundational. What you mentioned is foundational. Keeping at it, not giving up, working out your plans, replanning if needed, all that for sure. That's foundational. But I think what really helped me was what I call mentoring and eventually sponsorship. I got into a program for immigrant professionals myself, specifically for immigrant professionals. No, not any, no other class of immigration, for people like me who wanted to get into the system. So what that program does is to just teach you some norms about how things work in the corporate environment in Canada and things like that for a few months. But specifically, what they now do from that moment, of course, that's mentoring, but what they now do afterwards is what I call sponsorship. Then they go look for opportunities for you, professional level job opportunities for you. So they actually go look for it. It's like they go knock on doors. And in fact, even the interview, you'll still be interviewed. Even the interview, one of the rules of engagement for any organization that wanted to work with them is they had to, your mentor from that program had to be in the room with you and the interviewer or the interviewing panel when you are doing the interview. They will not say a word, but they will be there and just be looking. For that, they are trained you so on how things work. So they're the ones who opened the door for me. The funny thing is, they opened the door for me at an organization, the same organization where I had applied countless times without success.
So here's the question. Why didn't you, is it a question of knowledge or information? Why didn't you do that when you came in newly? Is it that you weren't aware that those opportunities existed?
Oh, that kind of
I'm
program?
thinking that if you had done that when you came in. Yeah, that kind of program.
Oh, well, I got wind of it again, just by mixing with people. I got to know about the program, but I got to know about the program, I believe it was December of 2012. But at that time, there was a wait list. That program, the next opportunity was going to be in March of 2013, as far back as December.
Okay, so that was 4 months waiting. Okay.
So
okay. So did you get into it in March?
Yeah, I believe it was March or April, one of them. I'm not sure of the precise dates, and I have the documents, but it's either March or April that I joined.
Okay, then it took a couple more months that made it, maybe 5 months later, made it 9, and then you got into the workforce.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because with the program, you had to, part of the requirements is you had to, it was like a school where they just teach you different, not about your job. They don't have anything, you're already a professional. They just, all the different things about Canada and all that. So it takes a while. Then after that, then they send you out to, so that's how that panned out.
Okay, now let's talk God at this point, because I used to be very like that. In fact, the greatest pains that I have felt in my life, the things that I've kicked myself for doing, are the things that I did believing that God said. Right? And I've made some, just harebrained decisions, right? And I've come to understand certain things. But what was your relationship with God when you were going through this at this time? Were you looking and doubting your relationship with God and going, I thought you said that, you said, God said, I heard God, he said, I had a dream, and here I am right now, it is not happening. So did I hear wrong? Did God, what was your relationship with God at that point in time? Were you shaking your fists at heaven and be like, you lied to me? Or were you like, look, I just got this whole concept of God wrong?
No, to be fair, that experience actually even drove me nearer to God. I didn't doubt that God was with us on that journey at all. I did not for 1 minute. What I just, for me, it was like, God, can you just let this cup pass over me quickly? That was it. That was all I was looking for. And one of the other reasons why he even drew me to God even more was, see, all these things, what I've described, working multiple jobs, working at night, doing all those things, it affected my relationship with my kids. It really did. And that got to me a lot. Um, yes, they were young, but we're no longer like talking and engaging as it things as in fact, one day my first son, and I always say this when I remember, one day my first son, I was there sitting down in the living room with my wife, and we're in the basement. We lived in the basement at that time, and it turned to my wife. I was there. He's talking to his dad here. He's just talking to the mom and said, was pointing to me and said, "Why is he always frowning?" He was referring to me, not our neighbor. I was sitting down there. It was like, why is he always frowning? My heart sank. I'm telling you, like, and that's why I always remember that episode. Like, my heart really sank. Like, oh God. So for me, yes, they were young. I How was I to explain to them that my not being available was a proof of my love for them? Eh? How would I explain that to a young child at the time? Like, my son at the time, he came in at age 7. I think it was maybe probably 8 at the time. Yeah, that was really my worry. That was really my problem. Like, how? So it really drove me back to God, to pray, to talk to Him, to literally release my frustration to Him, and trust that He will help me. So my relationship with God was not affected, to be fair. But the only thing is, He really drew me to Him, and the only thing that worried me was, when will this cup pass over me? I mean, should I even talk about the
Did you ever
quarrels?
consider going back to Nigeria?
Oh, I did think
Oh no,
about
please
it.
continue. We'll
Sorry.
come back to that. We'll come back to that. No, no, continue. We'll come back to that. You were talking about the
Yeah,
quarrels.
I wanted to say that, should I even talk about the quarrels that I would have with my wife and things like that? That it was obvious. She would quarrel with me, I would quarrel with her at the time. But when you look back, I realized that ultimately we were both stressed mentally, and we now started to attack each other, right? As if I was the bad guy, she was the bad person, that sort of thing. So, but we realized later, it was just a passing phase, and this thing happens more. Like, I've seen homes break as a result of this migration. You just see people move. In fact, I tell people this as well. I say, whatever fault lines previously existed in your relationship, immigration will amplify it.
Please say that again, sir. In your marriage. Please say that. Say that again, sir.
Yeah. So I said, whatever fault lines previously existed in your marriage, when you migrate, it's going to get amplified. Immigration has that effect. It's like they say in Hausa, dole, compulsory. It will happen. Whatever those cracks were that you were not paying attention to, once you migrate, boom, it becomes a bigger issue. Then you start to fight each other. You start to say, oh, so you are this bad, you are this terrible, and blah, blah, blah. I'm telling you, I have seen homes break as a result of this integration challenge. But if you can push through and be more understanding, and actually understand that, wait a minute, there are external factors happening, there are things happening in your life that both of you look at it. I had never lived abroad. My wife had never lived abroad. The kids had never lived abroad. We had never been in a situation where we didn't have enough money like that. We had never been in a situation where things were cold. Like, everything was new. So, and there was no way, I'm telling you, no way you could have been prepared for that without experiencing it. How could I have prepared? I would never know how I'm going to react. in such situations, right? So I was facing that, my wife was facing that, the kids were facing that. So all of us were reacting in ways that we didn't plan for. And we did, in fact, we wouldn't even understand this was why we were behaving that way. So if you're not careful, you will throw away the baby with the bathwater. You have to believe in something or someone that is greater than you. When I go talk to me, I said, you just have to, when you're on this journey, you have to make sure it's not a mortal man. Make sure it's not something that you created or another human being created, and make sure it's not something that has an expiry date. Whatever that looks like in your world, you have to hang on and believe, hold on to that thing, because that is the thing or the person or the individual that will, or the personality, whatever you want to call it, that will hold
The
you,
entity.
and make sure that you do not crash when you're going through this journey. Because the mental stress, it's a thing. It's not to say that the journey is bad or that your dream is invalid or was wrong or that your decision was wrong. But no, it's just to let you know that, hey, it comes with a cost and you got to know what that cost is. So you have to hang on to something. I always tell people, I say, for me, that thing is God. And I hold on to him tightly. I say, so you need it. I always say, I say the thing you need is not in your spouse, it's not in your friend, it's not anywhere else. It's above. Whatever that is for you, go figure it out. That's what I always say to people. So you can't, for me, you can't doubt God, you can't dump God, you can't, no. Because ultimately, you make the choice. God didn't force you.
So there's no seamless immigration journey, so to speak. So let's just get this out there, so that if anybody is watching this and you're thinking that this, so you've already testified that, look, I am not saying do not move to Canada, right?
For
That's
sure.
not what I'm saying,
No.
right? But having said that, also realize that there is no seamless immigration journey. Now, it's important that we talk about that, because your friends, two friends that you now referred to, they seem to have had it seamless. I don't know whether it was that way all the way through or whether it was just in the beginning. The Ghanaian who got a job before she came, and your other friend who was still in Nigeria and got a job, they seem to have had a seamless immigration journey. So which is the truth here? Is it that there is no seamless immigration or immigration journey, or is it that for some people it will be seamless?
All experiences are valid and should be considered in making a decision. Okay? That's the because okay, that my friend, the Ghanaian friend, she still has that job till today. My other friend who got the job just like that, like it was just a walk in the park. Later on, he lost that job. And that was another experience. It's different from integration because by that time, like it's a different ballgame entirely. So what he didn't go through, he now went through it because it took him a while to get another professional level job. In fact, the Uber you're talking about, this guy did Uber, did this, did that, did everything. What he didn't do at the beginning, when he lost the job, later on, maybe 2 years later or something, I don't even remember, he did all those things that, So for some people, it will be seamless. For some people, it will be rough. But if data is anything to reckon with, for most people, it will be rough. For a few people, it will be straightforward. That's just what it is. So the prayer for everybody is that the time it takes you to integrate, just hope and trust God that that period will be shortened for the elect's sake, like the scripture says. So again, I keep going back to the Bible. We have to shorten the day of tribulations.
For the elect's sake. Okay, so the question you were about to answer before we now went deeper into the marriage stuff was, did you ever consider going back to Nigeria? Because as I like to say often to people, people say, the people of Ajawa say that, bí iwájú ọba ṣe lọ, ẹ̀yìn ọ̀sà ṣe padà sí. Did you consider, like, look, I got this wrong, let's go back?
Of course, I did. I did multiple times. At the time, I felt ashamed. I'll now tell you. One, where I worked, the last place I worked, I had a private offer actually when I was going to leave eventually because they didn't want me to leave. So CIO worked out something for me. Um, and the plan was I should move with my family, settle them. They gave me 3 months. Just go. You're not working. You're not. Just go. Focus on your family. Settle them for 3 months. And during that period, that 3 months, they promised they were going to continue to pay me. But the condition was I had to come back.
And you turned that down.
I turned that down, Teju.
Look, I look. So let's even look. Let's talk truth. How did you live with yourself during the very difficult period, knowing that you turned down such an opportunity? I mean, me, I think I am harder on myself than most people are on themselves, on themselves. If it was me in your position, I would have killed myself internally. In fact, I would have been convinced of my arrogance and my stupidity. They had a job waiting for you. They even gave you 3 months to go and settle your family, during which they would continue to pay you, and you walked away from that. How did you deal with that?
I don't know. At a point, to be honest, I sort of regretted it. In fact, I have my sister. My sister is here, and I mentioned this offer to her back then. She was like, Omo, take it up, right? Like, accept the offer, that sort of thing. That was before I left Nigeria. It was very tempting. It was really very tempting. But the reason I didn't take it was I felt, as a family, we had never really left one another before. We were always together. So I thought, would I just go, leave them to be by themselves? How's my wife going to cope with 2 little kids? Like, I just thought it's like the comfort or the peace of mind that would have come from that, taking that offer. I just thought that ultimately it wasn't worth it. Some people thought I was foolish. At a point, I agreed with them that I was foolish, right? When me, I thought, no, but our village people finally all want to buy. They set you up for this, right? But the real reason was I just thought, no, for my family, no. I thought I needed to be there with them to go through it, and that if we just go through it together, it's a short thing, and then we'll be fine. But again, any jaoba don't like they say, right? You will always doubt yourself. Like I think was it.
Dapo, please look. You have said too much of this thing. Please be translating these things and proverbs. So translate this one now.
This one, sorry.
Translate. Any jaoba, nimpere lokunrin. Translate it.
Okay, there is an equivalent in English that says everybody has a plan until they are punched in the face.
I like. It's in the immortal words of Chief Doctor Landowo. Ẹni ìjà ọba tí ń pèrè lọ́kùnrin ibi ayé bá mi dé yìí o, bàbá mo máa dúpẹ́ tèmi. Oh boy. Okay, look. So here's the thing that I'll ask you as I begin to round this up. In the end, having gone and done all and been through all, is it worth it? Yeah, sorry, is it worth it? Was it worth it? Would you do it all over again?
Completely. It's worth it, very worth it. I am happy that I moved when I did. I'm happy we all came when we did. And I'm happy we didn't give up. So, would I do it all over again? Completely. I would do a few things differently in terms of now I know that, okay, things may not come as fast and things like that. And, do some networkings that I didn't essentially do before I came. I would do that differently. But will I do it again? I would do it 10 times again if I was starting my life all over again. In fact, I say to people, I would, if I had my way, I would do it even earlier than when I did it. I mean, I moved at age 35 or whatever it was. I would have done it faster, like way at a younger age. No regret whatsoever. No regret whatsoever. It is worth it. I tell you, I can't just
So what part of it is worth it exactly? What makes it worth it? What is the worth of it? Because let's put realistic values to that. What is the worth of it exactly? Because look, I even as I sit here talking to you, sometimes I still ask myself, is it worth it? I think of what I have given up. Now I have no doubt that maybe a few years down the line, maybe I will be where you are at, right? When you see everything begin to come together more, right? But when I think of the opportunities that I have given up and all the things and all of that, sometimes even till now, I still ask myself, is it actually worth it? So, I mean, you are now in that place where it is worth it. That's why I'm asking you, what is the worth of it? What is the tangible worth of it?
Okay. Number one, as basic as it sounds, I'm living my dream, and we're all living our dream. We thought about it. Well, I mean, I thought about it, sold it. We all believed it. And the future that we saw we're having, and what was that fundamental one? It is the fact that we wanted the opportunity to, quote unquote, be boundless. We wanted to be a world citizen. We were not, just being in Nigeria. We were not. We are here today. We're a global citizen. We can approach ourselves and go literally anywhere we wanted to go. The barrier, and it's not just something that influences just me or has an expiry date. Think about it. It affects generations. It's a decision. It's a generational decision. My kids can wake up today and say they want to go back to Nigeria or they want to go and live in Sudan or in Japan. That's their choice. But this has entirely changed their generation. They are Canadian citizens. Do you know what that means? The doors that open for you, the opportunities that open for you, I can't even quantify that. They have given them what I never had. How do I quantify that in money? That's one. Number two, in terms of my career, yes, I was very okay where I was in Nigeria and all that, but where I am today, like I'm choosing who I want to be every step of the way. And I'm mixing up having relationships that honestly, if I was in Nigeria, maybe I would have similar levels of influence and relationships within that ecosystem. Again, it would have been limited from where I am, even beyond where I am in the States, here, and a few other places. Like, I, I'm not saying, I don't want to be close minded and say that would never happen if you were in Nigeria, but from here, you're at a vantage point. It's totally worth it. The other thing I'll say, when it comes to family relationships and bringing up your kids and things like that, a lot of us, and especially men, when you're in the, when, I mean, being the patriarchal kind of lifestyle that we live, we're never deeply involved in the lives of our kids. When you come here, it's a totally different ballgame. No matter how busy you are, you got to make out time for these kids. The influence you have, because the system, like it's, I don't even know. I think the social structure is developed in a way that that's just it. Like that I can involve my, like, be that involved in the life of my kids. And like I have a friend, when they were in Nigeria, the one person was working in this place, the other was, they didn't have time for their kids, right? And both of them, they even took, one person was, I think their kids, they took their kids to whether their parents or whatever. So it's on weekends they go and see in Nigeria. It was when they got here they realized that, is this how my kids behave? That's when they started to know who their kids are. Like parenting, we complain about different countries and different economies and ecosystems and things like that. But the reality is, one basic thing, the family is the foundation of any society. Mess it up, mess up that society. When you have the father, you have the mother being consciously involved, very intentional in the lives of their kids, bringing up their kids, being there for them, you are molding the next society, literally. Because that person, that child, wakes up and moves to wherever the person wants to live tomorrow. I mean, you could do that in Nigeria, but the kind of, at least from my perspective, the kind of society we came from, we had help everywhere. It was more of a, a collectivist, like a community kind of setting. That's how we live. But here it's more individualistic, at least North America, the US, Canada. So which means literally everything you're on your own. So you get to appreciate your kids more. You watch them grow. Do you know what that is? To actually watch your kids grow, to be there for them. Like my last kid, we had our last child here, our third one. I had him here, and he was very young. I had the opportunity, the kind of work I was doing and still do. I will be in meetings with clients, with leaders in the organization. I will carry this boy on my lap. He will be with me as a baby. I'll be making presentation. I'm carrying my child. Do you know what that means? To have the opportunity to actually be there. I mean, again, could you do that in Nigeria? Maybe. But I had the opportunity to be able to have my child, and I'll tell them, hey, I have another presenter with me here. He's a baby. You could interrupt this conversation, and they're fine with that.
Okay. Finally, I know that you, based on your own personal experiences, you've come up with solutions for people who might be emigrating to Canada so that they don't have to go through what you've gone through. Is this correct?
I will call it guidance. I always tell them
Okay.
that, yeah, it's just guidance is what it is. But will, all I ask people is don't make, if you can avoid it, don't make the mistakes I made. Make your own, right? But learn from other people is all I say. So the fact that you do all the right things, does that mean that things will pan out right? We've talked about that already. Not necessarily, right? But the one thing what I do does for people is, number one, it gets them informed. It's a reality check. You have to know that this exists and it is true. And that's why I started my podcast, because a lot of times you see all those things online, you're not sure which one is true, which one is not true, and those. And I come with it's clear validation of experience. It's that I'm talking about. What I don't know, I don't talk about it. I don't make things up. So I get you informed. And number two is you are in a community. You are with people, like-minded people on the journey. It's easier to go through tough times if you know that other people are there with you. It's way easier than anything you can think of. So that guidance is what I give people. Like a lot of people, I just talk to them. I don't necessarily know everybody, but I'll guide them. Okay, this is what I think, this is what I think. But at the end of the day, people still have to make their own decisions, right? So I don't have a solution. I wish I did. I sincerely wish I did. I don't have a solution, but I guide people. They make the decisions ultimately, and life is easy. If you make a decision, it's not, you think it's a mistake, change it. You are not a tree, change it. You are a living being, right? So, but on the larger sense, the bigger problem that I'm trying to solve is the systemic issues that are happening. I'm even studying, right? I'm back in school as well, my doctorate and all that. And what I'm focused on in my research at this moment is still this same: how can we make things easier for immigrant professionals, specifically economic immigrants coming to Canada? What are the things, like I'm looking for that leverage? What are those small, minor leverage points that we can tweak, and the system will, make things easier, because it costs not just individuals money and their mental stress and everything. It costs Canada a lot as well. Untapped potential on the average costs us about $50 billion every year. So those are I'm now working more from the systemic perspective and trying to see what I can do. And that's why I've gone back into doing the research and, trying to work whatever I can do.
Awesome, Dapo. Thank you very much for this interaction. Before we go, again, I told one of my, I think it was the penultimate person with whom I spoke, that it's amazing to me that whenever I watch anybody online who interests me, I would just assume that the natural thing to do is to Google them. But apparently, not everybody makes this natural leap. So there may be people who are still wondering, how can I reach him? So please, how can they reach you? People who want some sort of guidance or are interested in what you do beyond this our interaction.
Thank you for that. The major websites, they just go to immigrantlife.ca. Immigrantlife.ca. So just go join that, or you can send an email. I don't have anybody else who attend to it. I'm the same person who responds. You can send an email to thrive@immigrantlife.ca, which is THRIVE@immigrantlife.ca. I will always respond. That's the easiest way to reach me. Or you go to my website. My personal website is there as well, dapobankole.com. Same thing. Submit a form. I'll reach out to you. Yeah.
And when they do that, what you give is guidance, personal guidance on how to, walk this journey.
Yeah, totally. And some people call me, somebody still called me late yesterday night. I saw the missed call actually, but people just call. Sometimes they just want to talk. I'm telling you. So there was there was somebody who called me and, we talked. And she was about, like, literally, like, I think I'm giving up. And she came from the UK, a Nigerian as well, found me on LinkedIn and we talked. By the time I finished, I'm like, go back there, go back and fight. You're moving on, that sort of thing. And she was pumped up, she was excited, and asked her to do a few things that and I noticed she started doing all those things. And so my aim is to help people not to give up, give them guidance on strategies that they can use, and just leave the rest to.
All right. Thanks a lot, Dapo. It was awesome speaking with you. I hope we get to do this very soon
In person.
In person.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
All right then.
Thank you, sir.